All right, everyone, welcome back to the Saturdayinathensga Podcast. My name is Marshall Barton. Today, I'm going to give you a little bit of a recap on what happened between Georgia and Auburn this past Saturday. I will send y'all to an interview with Hammy Culpepper and TheHammyShow and I, where we discuss the past two Georgia games, along with Georgia's upcoming top 10 matchup between the Hedges against Ole Miss. And then I'll give a little bit of a preview. Actually, I'll do that before the interview. I'll give you a little bit of a preview into Ole Miss, give you score prediction. We'll go into some injuries and then close it, as always, with the faith note word of encouragement. But let's go ahead and jump in. I thought Georgia had a good win against Auburn. Kind of the same deal as it was against Kentucky. It was a good win. It wasn't great. There were several areas where Georgia could have improved. I thought that we came out flat. Georgia has got to stop coming out flat and having slow starts. And I'll touch more up on that in just a minute. I think Auburn's a good football team. I don't think that they have the capacity to get it done in these must-win big games yet. But I do think Auburn's a good football team. I think Auburn posed a true challenge to Georgia last week. And I mean, it showed. Georgia struggled for quite a minute there. Georgia struggles, again, always in the first half. But it really showed that Auburn can hang around with some good teams. They've done it the last 2 weeks before that now. I still think that Hugh Freeze is on the hot seat, and unless he kind of turns it around, it's probably going to be a pretty quick end to his tenure at Auburn. Just because, I mean, again, he's got the talent, he's very close, but he's not closing it when he should. That's my take on Auburn. But again, I think it was a good win for Georgia, and we could see improvement. But I'm going to take a minute and kind of address the slow starts. It's really concerning that a team, we're going to offensively than defensively, and I do think more of the recent criticism actually falls on Glenn Schumann, which sounds crazy to Georgia fans heading into the year. Not because they thought Glenn Schumann, or not because the Georgia fan base as a consensus thought that Glenn Schumann was an incredible defensive coordinator, but because Mike Bobo is really where a lot of that blame fell among Georgia faithful. Now it's kind of shifted to, hey, and I mean, it still is on Bobo in a lot of ways, and the fan base perceives it as that. But really it's got to this point where Glenn Schumann has been sort of a problem in a lot of ways for Georgia, at least according to the fans. I'll get into that in a minute. But first, I am going to address Mike Bobo. I thought it was pretty evident that his game plan going into Auburn was to try to impose our will on the ground to start the game. Auburn's got a good front seven, good defense, good defensive line. Wanted to just see if we could kind of set the tone there, because if we could set the tone running the ball early, then it was going to be a great day for Georgia. And I like, again, the idea of aggression, trying to really win on the ground early on. With Bobo, I thought we'd let it go on for a little too long. Georgia didn't really get that many plays in the first half. That falls on us as having a bad opening script, and it falls on the fact that the defense couldn't get off the field and get the ball back to our offense. So it's a team sport. It's complementary football. It's a real thing. At the same time, I think the whole idea of, hey, let's attack Auburn's front seven nonstop instead of using some of the really good athletes we have on the perimeters as well. I think that was a mistake, but I don't think it's really as crucial as I saw it to be at the time. I hate the lack of creativity as far as the inside runs go to start the game. It's just up the middle. It's the same run every single time, or at least we did it several times to start the game, and we weren't getting anywhere with it. I thought we tried it for way too long. Again, I get the vision of trying to set the tone against that really good Auburn defensive line. I just think it went on for too long. Anyway, though, he called a really good second half. Like, if you go back and watch that second half against that first half, Georgia makes really good halftime adjustments. Most of that is Kirby. I give a lot of credit to Bobo, though, for making good halftime adjustments. I give a lot of credit to Schumann for making a lot of good halftime adjustments. But the creativity and how do I say this? The imagination and the creativity of that Georgia offensive play calling went up, and the predictability went down. It was a beautiful thing to see. We had a great end-around play to Dylan Bell, where Dylan Bell threw the ball, and it wasn't a great pass, but it's still a beautiful play design. I thought we called a lot of plays where we could get our guys into space. Had a great draw up to get Noah Thomas. Finally get Noah Thomas to football. We also had a great opportunity where we did a 4th and 1. It was a speed option, and we got the ball to Nate Frazier. I thought that was a beautiful play. Nate caught it and got the first down. It was a little bit of a bobble, but he caught it for sure. He did a good job staying concentrated and bringing it in and getting it across that first down marker. I thought we were really good with the fact that we were letting Gunner throw it up to guys. We let him throw it up to Colby Young once or twice. We let him throw it up to Elias Williams. I love what I saw. Even though Elias Williams didn't catch the pass, I just love the matchup we have with him. I think he could be a really productive player for Georgia moving forward. I'm excited to see what new ways we could use Elias Williams in. But that might just be I don't know. I think he can be really good for Georgia. I think most people would agree with me on that. But again, overall, I think it comes down to the fact that Bobo called a good first half, he called a bad first half and a good second half, and we got to stop having these slow starts, and it's team-wide. So now I'll go ahead and address Glenn Schumann. I think I've heard a lot of people say that the defense will take on the identity of their coordinator, and while there may or may not be some truth to that, that's not even the issue I see with this Georgia defense. I think the issue, there's a lot of them. There's three main issues with this Georgia defense. I'll go a little bit deeper into them with Hammy later. But our cornerbacks don't look back at the ball. We can't set the edge. Half of the time it's because we're being held to death. Half of the time we're just not setting the edge very well. And then the other issue is our blitzes are not creative. If you go back and watch Georgia's games in 2021, which was an incredible roster, it was one of the best defenses of all time. I'm not saying we have that exact thing on our defensive side of the football, but if you're looking at blue chip ratios, we're higher now than we were then. So I don't think talent is the issue. We're not dialing up enough blitzes earlier on in drives, earlier on in games. I think we're always waiting to third down to call the same stupid, uncreative blitz of throwing our linebackers into the guards full steam and hoping that they'll bull rush their way to the quarterback. There was one time where C.J. Allen actually won a bull rush, and I'm not saying that he doesn't win some of the others, but it takes too long to develop. And I think Glenn Schumann finally saw that later in the game and started calling some more creative stunts, creative pressures where guys are switching lanes, gap exchange. It was pretty beautiful to see. But I hope we can see more of that creativity on both sides of the ball to start games. If we could start and just throw our absolute best at whatever team we're playing, throw our absolute best shot at them, we'll be a top 3 team in the country. Second half Georgia so far has been so much more creative than first half Georgia, and second half Georgia looks like a top 5, top 3 team. First half Georgia looks like an unranked, no wins team in most cases. It was a fumble. It very clearly was a fumble. If you go back and watch the play, CJ punches it out first, and then Raylan punches it out. I don't know why Auburn fans are so confused on that, but it's clearly a fumble. As far as the clapping, here's my honest personal take on it. It looks 100% like he was calling a timeout. That was the motion he was doing. I think they probably should have kept it to where we called the timeout. They probably shouldn't have redone it. Or that's the way it should be. If you look at the rule books, it's written to where if he wasn't calling a timeout, then you're supposed to just restart the clock. It's treated as an inadvertent whistle to where it's almost like as if there were a timeout by the officials before the play and they're supposed to redo it. So the calling on the field, according to the rule books, was correct. And if you go back and watch Kirby as he's calling that timeout, so we think, he is saying, if you match up his words, he is saying they're clapping, they're clapping, they're clapping. There's no debate about that. It's very clear that is what he is doing. But then the other angle I saw, it looks like he's got this object in his hand like this almost, and he's clapping, clapping, clapping. But all you see is like that. So it looks like he's calling it. So he's really doing this, it looks like, but it looks like he's just calling a timeout like that. Totally looks like a timeout. I'm not denying that. What I am saying though is there's a really good video. I may link it to this video where it does break down the fact that while it looks like he was calling a timeout, he may have actually just had like an object in his hand while he was doing it. I'm not trying to throw some crap at you and just completely be blind to whatever happened. It totally looks like a timeout to me. Totally looked like a timeout. But that is the technical explanation I got, and I think it's a pretty good one overall. But anyway, that's done. That's Auburn. That's way gone. But it's really the rest are horrible. The rest are horrible both ways. That crew should not be calling a big game again, or at least for the rest of this year. Anyway, gonna go ahead and move on to Georgia Ole Miss. Really excited for this one. I'm a little nervous, but not really too badly. I think Georgia's got this one, and I'll explain why in a little bit. But it will be a close game. I think whoever wins this game will win it fairly close. No more than a 2-score game for sure. And I would say like 10 points being the 2-score part of that. Georgia lost 28-10 in Oxford last year and then won 52-17 in 2023. The game's going to be played, of course, in Athens, Georgia. Sanford Stadium. It's going to be 3:30 game, 80 degrees. It will be sunny. And we are going to stripe out Sanford. I want to give a lot of credit to Row 60 for their beautiful concept of running a white stripe down the middle of Sanford Stadium with black on the north side and red on the south side. It's going to look awesome. In theory and in practice, it looks beautiful, or it will. So I'm very excited to see that. And again, a lot of props to them for coming up with that. And Georgia football has officially endorsed it. So that was very cool. I know Row 60 works very hard. They got a lot of great stuff. So again, congrats to them. Credit to them for putting something great together. I think it's going to look beautiful. College game day will also be in Athens finally for this 9 versus 5 matchup. I'll be there. I'm excited to be in that atmosphere. I'll tell you what, game day is, a lot of people watch it like every weekend of their life, but have never been. I went for the first time 2 years ago, and it was incredible. It was, again, Ole Miss. It was raining. It was cold. Physically, it was miserable, but it was so loud, and everyone was calling the Dogs. They were playing Hail to Georgia, Glory. They did the trumpet to start it off. Just campus was electric. It was beautiful. It was such a great time. And then we went last year. Oh, and the other story about that, actually, I had broken my arm at the time that I went to that game day. So I'm over here with like this sling, and it's just like wet and it's cold and it's miserable. And I had to like put it inside the jacket because of how cold it was. And again, physically it wasn't great, but as far as the experience, it was just awesome. Character building. Let's go with that. It was character building. It was a lot of fun. I would encourage everyone to go to game day at least once. I try to make it every time that they come in town to Athens for sure. And then I went last year for Georgia, Tennessee. Not as much of a physical beatdown, but it was great. It was still a lot of fun. It was the first time Nick Saban had actually come to Athens. And as much as I dislike Nick Saban from like an Alabama standpoint, if you look at him objectively from like a commentator standpoint, football expert standpoint, Nick Saban just knows what he's talking about. It's a lot of fun to listen to on College Game Day. And the fact that I, the biggest Georgia fan that most of you know, just admitted that means that Nick Saban's doing something right. So again, credit to him. Credit to Pat McAfee for bringing some new electric energy to college football. A lot of credit to Kirk Herbstreit for how hard he works. He travels all across the country doing all sorts of things. I think Desmond and Reese are great. I think sometimes I don't think Desmond should be able to ever predict a college football playoff again. After that 1 year, he had like A&M winning it all or going to play Michigan, and he had some other teams that just were not gonna. I think it's Pittsburgh too. Horrible prediction, but I love Desmond. I think Desmond's a great dude. I think he's a smart guy. I just think that prediction was horrible. And then he had one either year before or year after that was also horrible. But I love that cast entirely. They're great. Pete Thamel's really funny because he's always so serious and dialed in on whatever they're doing, but he can also like have fun. It's like you see them doing the silly string at Oregon last week, the duck silly stringing. Thamel, as he's talking, I thought was pretty funny. But again, props to Row 60. Let's be hell. Show up to game day. Make it a long, good day for Georgia football. I'm very excited to see what we bring. I think Ole Miss is a good football team. They're one of the better. Sorry, this mic is being really annoying right now, y'all. I apologize for this. I believe that Ole Miss is a good football team. I don't think that they're an elite football team or a great football team yet. Disclaimer on that, though, is I don't think there's a lot of great football teams in general. I don't know. Outside of Miami, Ohio State, and maybe Indiana, there's not a lot of great teams out there this year. We can be great. Alabama can be great, but we got to consistently prove it. And I think there you could probably make a good argument for a lot of teams that aren't going to make the playoff. It's just it's too early on. Teams aren't consistent enough. There's not a lot of depth. But anyway, Ole Miss had a close win against an overrated LSU, but it's still a good win nonetheless. LSU was 4 at the time that they won. But then I believe Ole Miss then had a bye week, then played Washington State last weekend, almost lost to Washington State. I think a lot of that has to do with, it's a boring game. They're not awake for that. They're not up for that. These aren't excuses. This is just objectively looking at it. And they were looking ahead to playoffs, I truly believe. So I'm going to have a lot of confidence in Georgia in this one, as I mentioned before. Kawan Lacey and Trinidad Chambliss are dudes. They're great players. They're definitely going to provide some physical challenges for Georgia. I do think Georgia, again, I have confidence in Georgia. I think Georgia will scheme these guys up well. I believe that we can shut down the run at some point in the game. I'm not going to speak on first and second halves yet as far as what I expect in this game. I do think we'll be able to put enough pressure on Chambliss from a crowd noise standpoint and just from a defensive pass rush standpoint. I think we figured out some things last week as far as getting to the quarterback. I hope we can carry them over. Ultimately, it comes down to execution, right? No matter what play your coordinator calls, as long as you execute it, it's a good play. I'll probably have some people debate me on that. That's your truth, though. It comes down ultimately to execution. Coaching has a lot to do with it. Putting your players in a position to succeed from a play calling standpoint has a lot to do with good execution, but let's execute these plays early on. Let's show up early on. We don't need to wait 30 minutes to play a real game of football. Like I said, the pass rush needs to step up, and I expect it will. I expect it will carry that momentum from last week. Georgia's offensive line needs to start off fast. We need to impose our will on the ground early on, and also our defensive line on the flip side needs to shut down Kawan Lacey early on. Just win the run game. Georgia has dominated on both sides of the run. So thus far this season, I think there's been some moments against Kentucky and against Auburn where you kind of struggled to stop the run, especially last week though against Auburn. There were more situations where you struggled to run, I think, and then against Tennessee earlier on in the year, but you didn't really have as much of your offensive line figured out at that point. So I will give the benefit of the doubt there. But moving on, Georgia is favored by 7.5. I think that's a disgusting line. I would not touch that if you're a degenerate sports gambler. I just wouldn't mess with that line. I think Georgia wins this game by as much as 10. I think Ole Miss wins this game by as much as 10. I don't think there's much variation or much possibility for anything outside of that, really. I don't think it's a secure line to bet on. That's my honest take. Georgia's favored by 69.7% in the ESPN FPI. Ole Miss mathematically has 30.3 as of last check. But going over our position comparisons, I think Georgia's got overall the upper hand talent-wise. I think Ole Miss presents a lot of great challenges from a schematic view as far as their offense goes. Lane Kiffin's a fantastic coach. I love Lane from a person standpoint. I think he's a great coach. I have a lot of respect for him. I think he's good for the conference and ultimately good for the game. So I think a lot of this game comes down to X's and O's. It comes down to who wins the play calling battle, who wins the coaching battle. Last year we got exposed by Lane Kiffin. Georgia got outplayed in a lot of ways against Ole Miss. Georgia also got outcoached by Lane Kiffin. I think if you go back and watch that game, that's pretty evident with the number of plays where Ole Miss just has guys wide open. I'm really, really concerned about when these other teams start pulling guards that our linebackers will bite on it and then a tight end will be wide open. It happens a lot. CJ Allen did have one play last week. I think it was the first time Auburn did it. I believe that it probably could have been called a holding on CJ Allen. It wasn't, though, but CJ Allen finally picked up on it. But previously in the year, he nor Raylan had really picked up on these play-action tight end over routes, whatever you may call them. But just be ready. Ole Miss is probably going to pull some guards on pass plays, and it's probably going to cause some confusion. It will. Like, it makes sense if you're supposed to be reading guards or reading a triangle, whatever your keys are for whatever defense you're in. As a linebacker, like, guards are probably going to have a big influence on you, but we've got to stay disciplined and know what these guys are going to throw at us. Teams now know that they can pull guards and trick you as linebackers. Let's adjust. Let's say, hey, we've learned from that. You can't do that anymore. We've really figured that out as of late. But just be prepared. Ole Miss will probably do that. But I didn't want to read you this, keys to winning. This is from our collaborated analysis post earlier in the week. Offense must start early. As we've said several times now, if we win the toss, let's take the ball, go put up a quick 7. Second half Georgia is one of the best teams in the nation, but if we can get the first half figured out, it's going to be really, really tough for other teams to keep up with us from here on out. We'll be a force to be reckoned with, quite simply. Let's play from ahead early on. I mean, why can't we do that? I can't explain why we just caught so flat. But just if we can figure this out and finally start quick, Georgia will start dominating teams as we know Georgia does. It will be the real Georgia football that we all know and love. I mean, just that style of football will show itself again. It will reveal itself again. Stop the run and make Ole Miss one-dimensional. Make Chambliss have to win the game himself, Make Kawan Lacey and Trinidad Chambliss have to completely take over the game and will their own team to victory. In that case, I think we have a pretty good shot. Even though they're good players, I think if we shut down the rest of their team, 2 players can't carry the whole team, in my opinion. Take advantage of these undisciplined mistakes. I believe Rush was talking about how Ole Miss or Lane Kiffin coach team will have some bad mistakes that you just have to take advantage of if you want to win the game. As I may have mentioned earlier, it is Trinidad Chambliss' first road game starting. So as a crowd, let's make Sanford hell, as Hammy once said. Let's find that pass rush and don't allow Chambliss time to pick apart the defense. Survive the stupid. Again, Rush said this. Survive the stupid. Lane Kiffin's going to be throwing his absolute best at us from a coaching standpoint, from a play call standpoint. Again, he's been really scheming for this game for 3 weeks. He's been preparing for this game for much longer than that. He's been scheming and preparing for a long time. Focus has really been on us for 3 weeks now. Let's just be ready. We're going to see some stupid gimmicks early on. We're going to see an incredible opening script, most likely from Ole Miss. Just be prepared and respond. Respond. I'm going to go ahead and send y'all to that interview with Hammy. After that, I'll bring you back for my score prediction. All right, everybody. Welcome back to the Saturday in Athens GA podcast and the Hammy Show. Today, we're going to look over Georgia Ole Miss. We're going to look a little bit kind of at the last two games. We didn't meet last week, so we're going to kind of discuss how we think Georgia's responded since that loss to Alabama. Then we're going to kind of go a little bit further into just the team overall, and then we are going to get a couple final thoughts, or initial thoughts, I guess, on Ole Miss. So, Hammy, first question to you. How has Georgia responded since that heartbreaking loss to Alabama?
I mean, 2 wins, 2-0. You can't complain. It's exciting to see the response. I think it's pretty cool that you get a team like that and you get their backs against the wall and they're 5-1 after beating Tennessee the week before the bye week before Bama, and they're on top of the world. Everybody's looking at Georgia like, yep, the SEC still runs through Georgia, and then you get your soul crushed by Alabama, which has happened far too often for us Bulldog fans. But I love the response. I really do. I think just how Bama responded after their loss to Florida State and is probably in the driver's seat in the SEC. I think Georgia's kind of lurking in the shadows, and everybody's talking about Bama and Texas A&M, Ty Simpson, the Heisman favorite, and that receiving core, and Caden Proctor getting the ball in short yardage situations. Everybody's talking about Bama, and I love where we're at. I love kind of floating off the radar and or under the radar, if you will, and just being that kind of creepy person in the shadows that is just waiting to attack. And I think the stage is set this weekend for us to make somewhat of a statement. I think Ole Miss is in the same situation, whereas they, beat LSU, they get a huge win, they're undefeated, but then they kind of drop the ball against Washington State and escape with a win against a 33-point underdog. And everybody's looking like maybe Ole Miss is fraudulent after that LSU win because LSU's maybe not that good. So it's the stages are there for both teams. So it's going to be an exciting one in Sanford on Saturday for sure.
Absolutely. And you mentioned Ole Miss, and you mentioned Alabama and Texas A&M kind of being in the driver's seat, so to say. This is kind of I don't know. I didn't have this planned, but I did want to look over some of these top SEC rankings. There's a lot of teams that are still in it. There's several one-loss teams, obviously, but a lot of them probably aren't having a realistic shot. But if we look at it right now, Ole Miss is undefeated overall and in conference play. A&M's the same way. Alabama's undefeated in conference play. We've dropped a game. LSU's dropped a game. Tennessee's dropped a game. Texas dropped a game. A couple others that really won't make it. But I mean, it's pretty crazy to look at the conference, how stacked the SEC is. And everyone tries to throw out the Big Ten argument, which I'll give them credit. Indiana looks pretty solid.
Yeah.
Ohio State looks pretty solid. Okay, Cignetti's kind of like a freak. That dude, he kind of creeps me out just because I think he's a little psychotic. Something's wrong with him. But if you're around the game of football, something's got to be a little bit wrong with you in most cases. So I guess that's a good thing. But when you look at those other conferences, and I don't remember who it was on game day, it may have been Nick Saban, but he was talking about how you look at all these other conferences and they're so top heavy. So you've got the Big Ten and conferences like that, where there's a bunch of good teams all the way up at the top, and they're going to be beating up on those smaller, not so good teams. Look at the SEC, and so many of these teams are ranked. I think if you look at this top, there's probably 10 teams ranked right now. Just off the top of my head, that'd be my guess. I think it's somewhere around there.
I think it is.
So they're going to keep beating each other up. There are some teams in the SEC that would make the playoffs if they were in the Big Ten, ACC, whatever. But they're playing so many good teams. So when you get to the end of the year, the second best team in the SEC is probably a top 5 team realistically.
Yeah.
but it's just not going to look like it because you got so many conferences. It's there's so much depth in the SEC. Anyone really could win it. And I was speaking to another guy about this today about how much more depth there is, or how much less depth there is with NIL. Whereas like teams would used to get an injury if it was an elite team like Georgia or Alabama, it'd be like, okay, here's this 5-star they got, and that might still be the case with us. But
Yeah.
the talent, the overall depth has just gone down so much because every team is so even right now. And I guess that's one good part of NIL is it does kind of even the playing field, but at the same time you don't see, I guess, true dominance isn't rewarded. Like culture isn't rewarded
No.
as much as it used to be. So that's just kind of a random thought. But you mentioned that about A&M and Alabama being at the top of the SEC. The
Yeah.
other thing I did want to mention is Georgia football did initially or officially recognize Row 60's plan to stripe out Sanford Stadium.
Yeah.
Again, another unscripted random question, but I just wanted to ask you, how are you feeling about striping out Sanford Stadium?
Dude, I mean, I think it's awesome, and that's awesome for Row 60. Those guys are freaking great. They rock it, and it's pretty cool. It's never really, I feel like, taken effect. We've seen some accounts call for the blackout. We've seen the student section and some others just say random things that kind of never really come to fruition. But I like it. I've always I was against the blackout a few weeks ago, and I've stated my case on that, and I firmly believe it. And but striping Sanford, that's something new. So I believe in curses, and everybody can come at me for the curse thing, but I do believe in it. And hey, if it works, it works. So I love it. And but I will say this: if this works out and we stripe out Sanford, and it's a great looking stadium and all that good stuff, can we please just keep it to one game a year? Like, let's make
Thank you.
this a special occasion. Like, let's not just throw it out there every time, somebody ranked comes into town. Because we're in the SEC. We're going to have ranked opponents come to Athens week in and week out. This is a big game. This has afforded the response that this is gaining, but let's cut it there. Like, let's make this special, just like how Penn State has the whiteout once a year. Let's do this once a year and keep it that way.
I agree. I agree 100%. And that was something I was going to touch up on with like all this. I'll do superstitions, then I want to address what you just said about um, the themes for fans. So yes, I believe in superstitions. I don't know why, but it's just like I've always have. Like if I'm watching a game with my family, our household is like the type of family where if you stand up or if you change seats and a good play happens, guess what? You're standing there for the rest of the game. If
Same
Georgia
here.
has a good play when you go to the bathroom, you're sitting on the toilet for the rest of the game. There is no debate. That's just the way it works. Praise the Lord. That's the way it works.
It
There's
is.
no debate. That's how it's got to be. I remember the Tennessee game. They scored pretty quickly. Then I stood up, and then we scored pretty quickly. So I stayed standing for like I just didn't sit down for like a half hour, and it was
Yeah.
great. It was
Yeah.
great. I mean, they kind of started to take hold of the game, but I mean, I felt like I was doing something by standing. I really had a big
Exactly.
impact on the game. Um, I've, it's so funny. We are actually talking about that, me and some other people earlier. Someone was like, dude, does what jersey you wear really have an impact on the game? And I was like, yes,
Yes.
yes, it does.
100%.
100% it does. The national championship year, I wore this like lucky outfit. I wore, it was a customized Nick Chubb jersey, like some Under Armour shorts. And I wore the same socks, same hat every single week. The one week I really kind of deviated from it was when we lost to Alabama in the SEC championship. I wore like a Georgia Santa hat. So I take blame for us
Yeah.
losing to Alabama that year, actually.
Yeah.
But the outfit went pretty much 14-0. So that was awesome. And then the whole thing about the traditions with Sanford, the themes, I guess. I love the stripe out. I think it looks good in theory. I think it'll look really good in practice also. Now that the official Georgia account has endorsed it, like it was already going to do pretty well, I thought, but now that they've officially said, "Hey, go to their website," I think it's going to really take off. And again, credit and congrats to Row 60. That's huge for them. I hope that they've always been a pretty influential program, I thought, and they put out some really good stuff. But
Yeah.
I think they'll especially take off now after that. So that's awesome. I'm very happy for them.
Heck yeah.
But yes, I agree with you. Let's not every single night game call for a blackout. And last year we did the blackout against Tennessee, and it was great. It was awesome. I loved it. And then they called for the blackout against Georgia Tech, which is Black Friday, black jerseys, blackout. It makes sense, but it's like don't do two blackouts in 3 weeks. That kind of defeats the whole purpose of the black. Like Oregon wears a different jersey every week. Tennessee wears a different jersey every week. None of their jerseys are special.
Right.
well, Tennessee's because they just suck anyway. But when you wear a different one every single week, or if you wear like if you keep doing alternates, then it kind of defeats the whole purpose of alternates. It's just you don't even know what your jersey is at that point.
Yeah.
Um, so kind of with that, I was just gonna say like let's like you said, keep it a special thing. Let's not do these traditions or call for a blackout every single night game or call for a striked out Sanford if this does end up working out the way we expect it to. Let's not do a striked out Sanford every single time we have a big ranked noon game in Athens. So I totally agree with you on that.
Yeah.
Um, but I wanted to move on a little bit now from just those last two games and then the kind of other stuff not surrounding the game as much, but more so into the team. What is our biggest concern going forward so far this season? We're halfway through the season. Obviously, we've heard some concerns about the offensive line. I know the concerns about maybe the techniques of our defensive backs have gotten a little higher on the list as of late.
Yeah.
There's been several concerns. Some of them are kind of hyped up to a point they shouldn't be. Some of them are overrated and underrated, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Not every single talking point is really as warranted. I just wanted to know, though, what is your biggest concern going forward for this Georgia football team?
Yeah, I mean, if I was Kirby Smart right now, I'd be saying everything's our biggest concern. All we want to do is just keep getting better in every single facet of the game. And yes, that is true. But if you really look at it, I think there is serious concern for our secondary. Kyron Jones, with the reported injury in practice this week, really hurts. I thought, obviously, he was the one that returned the fumble, the scoop and score
He
against
did. It was a touchdown. It was a
it,
fumble, and it was a touchdown.
all day.
But sorry, I have to interrupt you
Yeah, yeah,
because I've been
go.
seeing a lot of Auburn fans try to say that we were offsides on that play, which, based off the screenshot, we totally were. But so were they. So it's
Yeah.
like I don't. They're just claiming refs because they lost. We know full well that if they won that game, they would be saying, "Oh no, it was on our side. It was fair." If the fumble went there, you know, I just applaud those refs for the job they did in that game. It was awesome.
Yep, clap your hands. But no, I do think there is serious concern in that secondary. I think Kyron Jones was kind of catching his groove. And I think KJ's obviously been the leader, sort of in that backfield. Dalen Everett has obviously taken a step forward as well, and he was last year in that secondary. He's just, I mean, because we're so weak on the opposite side at corner, Dalen Everett's gonna, there's going to be stuff that comes his way. I think relatively he's done very well against the deep ball. He's given some guys some cushion, off the line of scrimmage. That I think that's just package play and what we've got called for the defensive scheme in various situations. So I'm not faulting him at all. I really do worry about that other side at corner. Whether it's Ellis Robinson, whether it's Daniel Harris, whether it's DeMello Jones, whether it's whoever. It does scare me with the elite talent at wide receiver that is across the SEC. Auburn was probably one of the best, if not the best, wide receiver corps in that we will play, and maybe in the SEC. I think Bama had that title, but with Ryan Williams not playing how Ryan Williams was supposed to, Jeremy Bernard has taken that. Isaiah Horton is really well. It was really good for Alabama as well. So I really, I feel good about how our defensive backs performed in the second halves of the Bama game and the Auburn game. I think they shut down those receivers. I mean, Auburn, we didn't allow but 25 yards until that last drive when, Auburn was in desperation mode and it was practically garbage time. I think they finished with 52 total yards in the second half. Like, we shut them down. And I think that's largely in due to our front seven. I mean, CJ Allen took over the Auburn game. And so, where we have a weakness in the defensive backfield, I think a strength matches it. And I think that's our front seven. I think we're catching our stride. We got pressure on the quarterback. I think Auburn's a pretty good offensive line. And we got to Jackson Arnold. Now, Jackson Arnold has had his woes, and, people will say that, oh, well, it was a terrible quarterback that Georgia sacked. A sack's a sack, man. That's at the end of the day, a sack is a sack. Now, I think we go against a really good quarterback in Trinidad Chambliss, but if we get him to the ground, if we apply some pressure, if that front seven does what we thought they could do preseason, and what they have done in the second halves of these games, if we can put together 4 full quarters of that front seven getting after the quarterback, I think we'll be just fine on Saturday.
Absolutely. I think if we can impose our will offensively running the ball, but also stopping the run, I feel like that's been Georgia's probably strongest area this year has just been the run game overall. I feel like most of your issues have come from the pass game, although you've had some real lapses in the run defense and honestly run blocking.
Yeah.
You're pretty strong in those areas. I think Georgia having the crowd on their side and having again a solid run defense. We all know, and I believe it was Rush. Rush sent this on the
Yeah.
analysis, but he said survive the stupid. Because we
Yeah.
all know Lane Kiffin's going to come out with the absolute best opening script. And I'm prepared for us to go down early. I hope it doesn't happen. I really, really, really hope it does not happen because it shouldn't happen. We've got too much talent offensively to not be scoring points quick. We got too much talent defensively to not be containing the edge or whatever the other issues may be. But survive the stupid. Survive those initial sort of script, I guess. Survive that initial script that Lane's going to throw at us. Survive the initial stupid. Get past the first quarter in pretty good shape, or at
Yeah.
least not getting destroyed. And I trust Georgia's second half adjustments more than I trust Ole Miss's. Although I have a lot of respect for what Lane Kiffin can do from a schematic standpoint, from an offensive coaching standpoint. Um, but yeah, the other thing I was going to say about that was a defensive concerns so far. I think there's three major. Those biggest concern going forward. I think the three that I really want to kind of hone in on are defensive. But first one is I feel like we're so uncreative with our blitzes right now. Our pressures just lack creativity. Now it got better as the game went on. There was one play where I believe this when CJ got the sack, I believe it was a delayed blitz, but it was
Yeah.
some sort of stunt where our strategy so far has been run your linebackers straight into the guards and have everyone else do a bull rush, and hopefully it works. It's
Yeah.
driven me insane, and I'm not saying that can't work. I'm not saying if you're trying to apply pressure to the quarterback, if you guys are good at bull rushing, I'm not saying don't do that, but like it's all we ever do until we got to that second half. So that's one of my concerns. The other concern, second concern would be we don't set the edge very well, or when we do, we get held, get strangled, and they don't call it. And that's not, I'm not complaining about refs when I say that. I think overall, this isn't just about last weekend, but overall. But going back to the Auburn game, I think the refs were horrendous, just in general.
Yeah.
I think most people would agree with that. Now, of course, the Auburn fans will try to tell you that they rigged it for Auburn. And with the several stops to end the first half, that it was helping us. Well, first of all, I would have liked to get a little bit of a hurry up going because I believe that Georgia does pretty well offensively when they're forced to just throw quick passes and get some guys relatively into space. Also, if you're trying to claim that that gave Georgia an advantage in drawing up plays, Mike Bobo had like 30 minutes during that goal line review to be drawing up plays. So there's no excuse there.
Yeah.
Um, but anyway, I do think it's been consistent this season that Georgia either just does not set the edge and is very poor at it, or when they do have the edge or are about to have the edge, they will get held and there will very rarely be a flag thrown on it. But that's an issue either way.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
it is definitely an issue that we can't set the edge, at least to start games. As the game goes on, they don't get as many of these midline reads and I don't know, jet sweeps, inverted veers, whatever you want to call them, whatever terminology you use. They get to the edge. The offense we're playing usually gets to the edge pretty easily at the start of the game, and then just we kind of take over. But it needs to be a thing from the start. But by far, one of the most irritating concerns for me about this defense is our defensive backs, not specifically defensive back, or I'm sorry, not defensive backs in general, but specifically our cornerbacks do not look back at the ball ever.
Yeah.
Dalen Everett is a great player. He rarely looks back at the ball, in my opinion. Ellis doesn't look back at the ball. DeMello Jones has been playing a good bit, and he's a good athlete. He had one play against Auburn. I believe he was guarding Cam Coleman.
Hmm.
Um, and he had great coverage just on this dude, just locking him up. And he never looks back for the ball. He just runs into Cam Coleman and gets a penalty. I put that on coaching. I'm not in those rooms. I'm not at practice. I can't tell you exactly what it is. But when every single player in your room struggles with the exact same thing, especially when you have the highest rated cornerback, I think ever,
Yeah.
it's probably a coaching thing. Now, Dominique Kelly, 24, who got some reps against Kentucky, he did get two flags, and one of them was but he looked back at the ball. Overall, he looked back at the ball, or at least did a better job than the other guys, in my opinion. So I don't know. I think it's setting the edge. I think our blitzes aren't creative enough, and I think our cornerback play, at least as far as looking back at the ball, has been pretty crappy. But I think there have been some times though where you play really good receivers and you have no pass rush, and your cornerbacks are still holding them to, uh, I mean a good number, relatively speaking, for passing yards. So I mean,
Yeah.
I,
Yeah.
I don't know. It kind of goes both ways. There's blame everywhere. Like you said about Kirby, he's probably blaming everyone, and it is
Yeah.
a team sport. There's
Yeah.
coaches, there's players, there's several different position groups. Like everyone takes some sort of blame. Um, but the next question I wanted to get to, uh, how is our offensive line playing right now, in your opinion? Are they playing good enough to win a national championship? Do we have a long ways to go? What is the offensive line? What's the current status of that offensive line to you?
I think theoretically we're playing, you could say, championship football because I think there's so much parity like we were talking about earlier. Like if you play just an inch better than somebody, you could be a national champion or you could be 8-4. So like it's the 1 inch, and it's not like how it used to be where we just dominated on the offensive line. Five dudes, if one went down, it was the next man up, and they were probably starting for the rest of the season, even if the starter ahead of them what could come back. Like it was just we had so much depth, and that's part of the parity. But I think we have that 1 inch right now. I go back to Monroe Freeling this past weekend. He was a stud, and he was playing on a bum left foot. He was playing on 1 foot and absolutely owned Keldrick Falk, who is a defensive tackle or defensive end for Auburn that is projected first round pick. I talked to him at SEC Media Days. The kid is a stud. Like he is flying around the field. He is setting the edge. Unlike this Georgia defense, he is setting the edge. He got to the quarterback. I mean, he's a stud. And Gunner made a great play. One of those plays that he was sacked far beyond the line, far behind the line, and Keldrick Falk was basically on top of him. And then all of a sudden, Gunner sheds that tackle, and he gets tackled behind the line of scrimmage. But it could have been a loss of 8, and it was like a loss of 2. But anyways, Keldrick Falk was all over the field, and Monroe Freeling was moving him like he was a rag doll on 1 foot. And so I think those type of performances, those single performances, even though it's a unit and that offensive line works together as a unit, like they don't get, there's no one, offensive lineman that gets the award. You get the Joe Moore offensive lineman, like offensive line unit award or whatever it's called. Like it's a unit, and it's always going to be a unit. It's five guys on the offensive line that set the tone of the game. But I think if you have one guy that takes that step forward and shows what he can do, and puts a performance on tape like that, they get back in the film room, and Kirby's like, "Hey, Micah, look at what Monroe is doing right next to you. Hey, Drew, look at what Monroe's doing on your left. Look at what, hey, Ernest, look at these guys. Like, let's get our hands in these dudes' chest and just move them. Let's move them. You were bigger than them, and we have been a dominant force, and we trust in you because we didn't go to the transfer portal to get offensive linemen. We stuck with our guys, and Kirby was confident that they could do it. So, yeah, I think we are playing championship football because we have that inch. We have that mentality. We've got that step further, and we are going to impose our will, and we're going to establish the run. We're going to protect our quarterback. Our quarterback is going to make a play, and we're just going to chug right along like the Great Wall of Georgia.
I agree. I think definitely there's been progress from game to game, which has
Yes.
been encouraging for the line. I've been critical of Stacey Searles, and I still am. But I will give him credit that every game you watch this Georgia offensive line, it gets better and better and better. And that, I mean, if you want to be a championship football team, you've got to get consistently better. And I think they've done a really good job of that. Now, where I still, and I still am not crazy about him for it's kind of X's and O's, but more so at this point. Maybe we talked about this. Maybe this was last week when my podcast just deleted itself off of the computer and I couldn't do it. So it was not fun. It was a horrible experience. Um, but more of my concern with him comes from the depth. And like you said, we used to have those guys where, hey, 5-star goes down, 5-star go in. You don't have that on the offensive line right now. And I think part of that is due to him. He doesn't have a great recruiting history. Now, he recruited some big linemen in that 2024 class, I believe it was, the Great Wall of Georgia, like we were talking about.
Mhm.
Um, but just not a lot of that elite 5-star talent. I'm not saying it has to be 5 stars because Georgia can find some gems in these recruiting classes in the portal from JUCO, whatever it may be. But it's just not the same standard of talent acquisition as it was. I think part of it's on him. I think part of it, we already discussed NIL a little bit and how that's affected depth. I think part of it's on that.
Yeah.
Like, and I was speaking to someone on this recently, but if you have a player who you recruit who's a 5-star lineman and you tell him, hey, you're going to have to sit behind this guy for 1 or 2 years. Most cases, that player is not going to do that. He's going to go somewhere where he can start immediately and then get to the league, or he's going to just go to whoever pays him the most money. So
Yeah.
I think there's a little bit of blame on him, but I also cut him a little slack because I mean, my initial opinion. I just didn't. When we first hired him, I wasn't too worried, but as it's gone on, I've been kind of losing faith in the dude. But as of late, with again that consistent improvement, and then just talking to people who have a maybe different perspective on how NIL has it impacted depth
Right.
and stuff of that nature, like I've been a little more gracious to him. I think we'll see how the season goes on before I give an official final take on that because a lot can change in 6 games or however many games we're going to have left.
Yeah.
Um, but I did want to mention Monroe. As you said, he's playing on one foot. Uh, Kept up with an incredible player on Auburn. One SEC player of the week, and I believe it was Davin Bellamy, who now does film review
Yeah.
independently for Georgia. He does a great job. It's so great to have a former player of your team, especially to be doing something like that. But he was going over that goal line play after they fumbled. In that first, it's either the first or second play. Monroe takes this dude, drives him inside, and Josh McCray has a wide open lane. And I think Davin said that was the best play of the game.
Yeah.
I wouldn't argue with him. Like that gets Georgia 3 points on the board and a little bit of momentum heading into halftime. And I mean, again, the dude's playing on one foot, so he deserves a lot of credit there, for sure. And then we're gonna change a little bit on kind of our path here for this episode. Uh, Bobo and Schumann. I
Hmm.
think people hear those words and probably already just form some sort of anger opinion in their brain. I have a love-hate relationship with both of these guys, especially Bobo, because as the first half goes on, I'll let my emotions get to me a little bit and post something and maybe be a little upset with the fact that we just ran 2 or 3 inside zones in a row and it didn't work. Shocker. Then we throw the bubble. Um, and then as far as Schumann, we just start off flat with both of these dudes. Is my problem with them. And if they can figure out how to just take what they learn in the second half of games and carry it over to the first half of the next game, I think Georgia's probably a top 5, maybe even top 3 team. Second half
Yeah.
Georgia is a different Georgia team. But what's your honest assessment of Glenn Schumann and Mike Bobo as far as their performances go in 2025?
I think you hit the nail on the head. Like second half coordinators, two of the best in the business, and our team is a second half team right now, and we've been. I saw that tweet that you reposted. I saw it earlier in the week, and it was like Georgia kicks off at 3:30. Seems like the Dogs will start playing at 4:30, 5 o'clock. Like it's the truth. Like I mean, seriously, I mean, that's exactly what this whole season has been. Just second half team. So yeah, I want to change that. I want it 4 full quarters. I think Bobo has definitely asserted himself as more of a consistent play caller. I think our scheme has been well. I think obviously they go hand in hand. This past weekend against Auburn, we couldn't get our defense off the field, and that's not Bobo's fault that we couldn't generate any sort of momentum on offense. I know we went 3 and out and like got a 1 first down the next drive or whatever it was the drive chart was, but like you can't generate momentum running 12 total offensive plays in the first half until that play until the drive after the fumble. So like that's on Schumann because that's the defensive problem. And I also think, and this kind of goes back to the Tennessee game, we're Georgia, and we have the Georgia G on. We wear the red and black. And when we come to town or you come to Sanford, it's the Super Bowl, no matter who we're playing. But that's just what you get when you're the king of the mountain, and you have been, and we still are of the SEC. We're still the defending champs of the conference. Like, you've got the target on your back, and anybody that comes into this place knows that. And Tennessee was working on that first drive that they had against us since January, and it was down to
Maybe
us,
longer.
maybe
Maybe
longer.
since like November 17th of last year. That was the day
Yeah,
after we beat them.
yeah.
So
And so like they would had it down to a science. And I think Hugh Freeze had Auburn's, kind of first drive, their first half, their offensive scheme down to a science. I think he's been practicing for this one for a long time, a lot longer than he was practicing for, say, Oklahoma or even Baylor at the beginning of the year. Like he's been looking at Georgia as the juggernaut that we have to take down and we can ruin their season right here. And so it showed. So that's, obviously not on Schumann. I do agree with you what we talked about earlier. The blitz disguises are just completely gone. Like there's nothing. We're bull rushing straight into the guards from the linebacker position, and we have the most star-studded linebacker room in the conference. I think maybe in the country. I think C.J. Allen and Raylan Wilson are like Batman and Robin. Like CJ Allen is the brains of the organization, and Raylan Wilson is the freak of nature athlete. And then you got Chris Cole and Justin Williams. Chris Cole might be the future great NFL linebacker one day. Like, he is a stud, and Justin Williams is great too. And those are their backups. Like, they would be starting at any other school in the SEC, maybe the country. We have got to get creative with some, pre-snap movement, something to just disguise it a little better. So that's where my problem with Schumann lies. And then I'll go back to Bobo really quick. The screenplays, I think our offense is set up for it. Like, Gunner's not going to go out there and throw a 52-yard bomb. I wish he would, but I think the screenplays, I'm loving them more and more because we have the best screen route runner in the country in Zachariah Branch. Like, he is perfect for that system. Got Noah Thomas the ball. That was freaking awesome to see. Got Colby Young the ball. I mean, Colby Young, that one run he had after the ball, the yards after the catch and then the yards after contact. Holy cow. That mofo is a stud. And we got to keep getting him the ball. And we've established the run. So my slack for Bobo, I've got a lot more of it now. Schumann, tighter for sure. But let's play 4 full quarters. Let's be the 2 best coordinators in the country against Ole Miss on Saturday. Let's be the best team in the country on Saturday.
We totally can be. We just got to figure it out.
Yep.
And then the other part of this is Georgia's a relatively young team. Like a lot of other teams you look at right now are our finished product or are closer to being a finished product than Georgia. Georgia's got, and we may have spoken on this a couple weeks ago, but Georgia's got youth. Like Georgia's still figuring it out, and the fact that it's getting better and better is promising to see. Now, I did want to touch up on this, and this drives me absolutely insane to read the stat to you. But Auburn came into this game this past week 3 for 28 on third down against SEC teams. 3 for 28. I am going to do the math on that real quick. I think I don't know. I don't have the number off the top of my head. 3 divided by 28. So they're converting on 11% of third downs against SEC teams. They went 5 for 5 to start the game against us. We have got to get off the field. We've got to get off the field on third down, or else no matter who we play, we're going to keep them in the game for much longer than they should be in the game.
Alabama did it to us. I mean,
Alabama did it. It
we
was
could not
unreal.
get off
It
of
was unbelievable.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe it. Every single third down.
Yeah.
But then the other part of what you just said, I talked about this with somebody recently, just about how comparison can kill so much joy and happiness and
Yeah.
contentness with what you have now. But I am gonna compare Dan Lanning and Glenn Schumann. It's got to happen
Yeah.
because while Dan Lanning did have an insane roster, he had an insane front seven, and they were all juniors or seniors for the most part, outside of Jalen Carter, who was a sophomore at the time.
Yeah.
They were, I mean, there was no problem disguising blitzes for them. There was no problem with the blitzes with them. Dane Lanning was a master of knowing when to blitz and what blitz to throw at the team. Watch Georgia versus Clemson. For whoever's watching this, watch Georgia versus Clemson 2021. It was the most beautiful thing in terms of blitzes you've ever seen in your life. I mean, it was incredible. And I'm not calling CJ Allen the Kobe Dean. I'm not calling Raylan Wilson or Chris Cole or Justin Williams the Kobe Dean. But they have a lot of talent, and it's pretty comparable to Kobe Dean as far as, again, like a raw talent standpoint. Georgia has like an 84% blue chip ratio on this team this year. It was like 81 or 77 back in 2021, and we still can't get to the quarterback. And I think a lot of that falls on Glenn. You have a very aggressive coordinator in Dane Lanning who's like, let's go attack. Let's go make plays defensively. Whereas I think Glenn Schumann is honestly a little too conservative right now. I don't know if some of that falls back on Kirby and what he's seeing. I don't know if it's just entirely, I don't know if I said Dan or Glenn right there. I don't know if Glenn's being conservative just because he wants to be. I don't know if that's a Kirby thing, but
Yeah.
like we got to figure it out. I think a lot of the success that Georgia had from 2021 to 2023, 24-ish on defense was because of Will Muschamp. I really believe that. And if you follow the trends, the games that Muschamp was there, and then the ones he left last year and then came back for, or he was there all of last year, but the ones he was on field for as an on-field analyst were Georgia's best defensive games.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no denying it. He came back for the SEC championship against Texas. You could argue that we just owned Texas, and I wouldn't really argue you. But as far as how poorly that defense had been playing for a couple of weeks overall, and then get to that game, we just shut down a really talented Texas offense. I don't think it's a coincidence that Will Muschamp was on the field for that game. I've also heard from several sources that when Muschamp came in, that defense in 2021 was very complicated. I feel like sometimes we may overcomplicate some things, and Muschamp came in and was like, "Hey, let's simplify this a little bit. Let's kind of, I don't know, just what our goal is, like our terminology, our concepts. Let's simplify it just a little bit." And that was the best defense college football has seen in a long time. I think
Long
most people would
time.
argue since 2011 Alabama at least, but I think a lot of people would go back even further than that.
Yeah.
Um, so that's kind of my honest take on the defense. And again, like comparison, it's not a good thing because it'll rob you of so much joy. But it's like when we have that standard at Georgia, we got to be honest with ourselves. How do we go from where we were with Lanning and Monkentori or now with Bobo and Schumann? And Bobo and Schumann have all the tools to do it. And I've seen flashes of them being able to do it, but we got to be able to do it consistently and early on in games.
Yep.
Um, I'm going to ask you real quick. I kind of touched up on the defensive backs, on the cornerbacks, um, but I've heard mixed opinions overall because I mentioned the fact that they have no pass rush, but also they don't look back at the ball. Regardless, real quick, what are your thoughts on our defensive backs so far?
Um, so what I really want to see, and we haven't done it yet, this is kind of like a very specific thing, but I want to see like a corner blitz or a safety blitz. Go back to the Ole Miss game in 2023 when we just absolutely throttled them in Athens. Javon Bullard played out of his mind. And I think we ran a corner blitz with him, and then we ran some safety blitzes with those teams. Like, dude, where is that in our defense? Like, and it goes back to like just not like having some disguises and some stunts and stuff. So that's just a specific thing that I wanted to point out. Like, I'm just that's just something missing in our defense. If we're not getting any pressure on the quarterback, if whatever is not working right now, then let's mix it up. Let's do something crazy. Um, but I do think I want to talk about the defensive line first because it goes into the defensive backfield. Like you said, we've got to set the edge. Like Kristen Miller has been very underwhelming thus far in the 2025 season. I think you posted that picture, and now it's his like profile pic on Instagram. It's pretty awesome. But it is
Yeah.
like four Kentucky offensive linemen, all tag teaming him on the defensive line. So like he is getting the focus of an offensive line, like he is a stud, and he is. I think he is. Um, but we've got to just, and that goes to the disguises. Like we've got to get some pre-snap movement. What happened to the defensive line shifts that we used to do every third down snap against Tennessee in 2022? Like that drew Tennessee off sides a million times, or drew him to do a false start like a million times. But I don't know. And I think that goes into your defensive backs, not applying pressure. It just leaves those receivers, those elite receivers that we've gone up against in the SEC, to just give them time to get open. So I think it's a lot. Obviously, football, like we said, is a team sport. There's 11 men on the field, 11 hats going toward the ball, and you've got to scheme it up to where you play to your strengths and your weaknesses can kind of be masked by those strengths. And I think that's the key for this Georgia defense moving forward.
I wish I could see another star blitz from Javon Bullard. I could use that so much right now.
It's
I
like
think,
drugs. I mean, it's addicting to watch it. Like he is
dude,
so good.
literally, it's my favorite blitz we've ever run. And you
Oh,
remember, you mentioned the game against Tennessee in 2022, but not for the same reason. We
yeah,
ran that star blitz twice against them
awesome.
at different times in the game, but I think it was pretty close together within the fourth quarter, I believe. And I mean, they same exact blitz twice, and they couldn't pick it up. I
Oh
mean,
my
it was a
gosh.
beautiful thing, and I think Janelle Aguero is probably capable of getting to the quarterback if we just let him try that. Thank you, thank you,
Yes, I
thank
mean,
you.
he is a stud. He is one of the freakiest athletes on this football team.
Janelle is a dog.
Like he is
Janelle
a
is a dog.
straight up just freak. He's a freak. He is a freak of nature, and he's one of the fastest dudes on the team, and he weighs like 220, 230. Like let's get him involved. And he's been largely, kind of absent in this defensive scheme. He had that huge hit against Tennessee earlier in the year, but man, I love watching him play. It really reminds me of a bigger Javon Bullard. Like they have a very similar play style, just kind of headhunters, and they can drop back into coverage, but they can also bring the blitz on a star blitz, which is it's so beautiful to watch. Gosh, I love it.
I love it. I love it. And as a former linebacker myself, I think I just love the star position. Like I never played star. I played linebacker and I loved it.
Yeah.
But if I and I probably wouldn't have been able to play star, let's be realistic. But Star is just awesome for so many reasons. You're just a linebacker safety, is really what you are. You're just a guy they can bring down in the box, but they can also put over top if they need to. So
Yeah.
I think the star position is a beautiful thing. Um, I've seen the corner blitz one time this year, and I
Yeah.
feel like I think it was last week. I can't remember. Maybe it was Dalen. It's either Dalen or Ellis, but I think we've seen it one time this year. I'd love to see it a little bit more, like you said, because I think definitely. I mean, it works. It just as long as you're not doing it over and over again, throw in some wrinkles like that. Throw in
Yeah.
some creative blitz calls. And in Glenn's defense, that was in the first half, and it just didn't work. It got picked up. But I mean, let's do some more of that. Let's get to the quarterback in newer ways. When I posted that picture of Christian Miller being blocked by four Kentucky offensive linemen, still an insane picture.
Yeah.
Um, but one of my immediate thoughts was, how is this a real non-AI, non-Photoshop picture, and we still can't get a pass rush? I don't know his percentage of how often he's on the field on third down,
Yeah.
but I mean it does matter. It's not like we're just throwing the ball on first down against Georgia. Like, get to the quarterback. If it takes four people to block number 52, then that leaves three other people theoretically unblocked. Get
Yeah.
to the quarterback. That's
Yeah.
my main issue with that. Um, and then the last thing you kind of mentioned I wanted to address is the whole idea of stemming or shifting before the snap. I mean, you're right. I haven't even thought about that, but we really haven't seen a lot of it this year. We've seen it kind of scarcely.
Yeah.
I don't know if they're afraid of getting a penalty with the new rule, but they shouldn't be because what they've always done was it was never a penalty. It was simply just normal stemming.
Yeah.
Maybe they're afraid that they might get penalized. I don't know. That's my only potential explanation for that, but I think it's well within the rules. It works. People jump off or people false start. And when what we're doing is well within the rules, why not do it? Why not try it a little bit? But I did want to shift a little bit from the idea of just generally the state of Georgia football to specifically this Georgia versus Ole Miss game. What is the biggest challenge that Ole Miss presents to us this weekend?
I mean, it goes to our weakness. I think it's Trinidad Chambliss and those receivers. But a close second is Kawan Lacey, their running back. Everybody thinks Lane and Trinidad and really any Lane offense, no matter who's at quarterback, starts with the pass and they're just this over the top air raid offense, which, yeah, they've got that ability, but it starts with their run game. They're just like every single other team in the country. Everybody's offense starts with their run game. If they don't establish it, then it doesn't open up the play action. It doesn't open the deep threat. And I think that's what Ole Miss has prided themselves on this year is and why they have looked so good thus far because Kawan Lacey is a freaking stud at running back. Like he is a scary mofo. And if he gets started early, it's going to be a long night for those DBs because the play action is just going to draw 8 dudes in and we're going to try and shut down Kawan Lacey. And that is three of our what we've said, questionable defensive backs in coverage. Like it that terrifies me. And I think that's what opens up the game for Ole Miss and Trinidad Chambliss and Lane Kiffin's offensive scheme. However, to combat that thought, Trinidad lives and dies by the deep ball, and if it's not going, it is picked off or it is terribly overthrown, and then his confidence is just ruined. And so I think we combat that with, and I'm maybe getting into the next question with what's the key, but like if we get to the quarterback or if he lives and dies by the deep ball and we shut it down in pass protection, like then it's game on. And I think that's what we can do to keep him at bay and not let him be the one that beats us, basically. Like if we're gonna let somebody beat us, let's let it be Kawan Lacey. Like I don't want to see this kid that went to Ferris State D2 school come and beat Georgia in Sanford Stadium. Like let's go down with some dignity and let a running back beat us. I'm just throwing that out there, but I am confident that we can shut down the run game and then he's going to panic and have to go to the deep ball and then let's get an interception. Like, please, come on. Let's get an interception and let's make this Georgia's ball game all day on Saturday for 64 minutes.
Love to see a takeaway, and like we just kind of said, that all kind of gets back to just starting early. Get
Yeah.
get to a quick start and affect them early on with getting to the quarterback. Make their running back beat you. Make him show that he's capable of putting the team on his back. Which I mean, I don't even if he tries to, I don't think that he can really have much success against what we have is a pretty talented defense.
Yeah.
But yeah, getting into that next question, what are your keys for Georgia in winning this game? Obviously, we did our analysis post earlier in the week, just kind of going over that briefly. But what do you really need to see from Georgia to be feeling comfortable about their chances here?
Yeah. So yeah, we kind of talked about that, elaborating on it. And my key point was a lot of stuff we've talked about, and it's playing 4 full quarters. Kirby obviously called at the Monday press conference, called to action the Georgia fans to show up and show out. Needs to be the greatest Sanford Stadium environment of all time. And I was listening to Josh Pate, and this point really struck me. He said, Kirby, yeah, he wants it to be awesome in Sanford Stadium because there's recruits in town, and he wants to affect them, blah blah blah. But what it really boils down to is Georgia has been a terrible first half team, first half defense at least, and Ole Miss is like a top 20, maybe top 10 scoring offense in the first half. So yeah, we came back against Tennessee. We came back against Auburn. We almost came back against Alabama, but we had the better second half than the Crimson Tide in that game. But like, if this Ole Miss team gets out to a 14, 17, 21-0, 21-3, something like that in the first half, it is going to be tough sledding for the Georgia Bulldogs. And I think that's why he wants this to be the most electric Sanford Stadium atmosphere. We have to be there early, be loud, be intense, be tough, be electric, be elite from the start, from the first bell, and really before. Like, let's make that motherfucker go freaking nuts. I'm sorry. We got to get it going. Excuse my language, but 60 minutes before, I want that place to be packed out, striped out. Let's do it.
And let's be hell.
Let's be hell, baby.
Let's be hell. I love it. You mentioned you mentioned golly. He has not stopped getting crap for that. And I mean, if you watch the call back, clearly he's doing this, right? Now, I have seen a video that tries to explain that he had something and that it was like a closed fist. You can't really tell. It still looks like a timeout to me.
Yeah.
It's whatever. But what is very clear is as he's yelling down the sideline, he is yelling, they're clapping, they're clapping. So that's true.
Yeah.
I don't know. Again, it's tough to see because you only have so many angles and you're not down on the field. But it's a whole screwed up thing. Those refs should not be calling a major game for a while. They screwed up
A
too many
lot.
times, or not even screwed up. Screwed up's a good word, but more so what I'm going for is they weren't as decisive as they should have been. You can't be calling a big stakes SEC game if you're not going to be decisive.
They
So
ref
that's my part
Yeah,
about
they
that.
refed with emotion. Like you play with emotion. You don't ref. You ref by facts and objectiveness. And
It's
like
perfect.
the timeout, whatever, and then Colby Young gets that long play to the 1 yard line or whatever. I think those were the back-to-back plays or whatever happened against Auburn. That was a terrible call. And then they call Cash for a blindside block. Like the
A
makeup,
phantom blindside block.
yeah,
It
like
was it wasn't a phantom.
the
Or it
makeup
was
call,
phantom.
yeah,
It was
yeah.
a sorry, I have to elaborate. It was a phantom blindside block. There was no blindside block.
No,
They just felt like it was a blindside block. They also felt like they screwed Auburn by giving Georgia a timeout back. It was a makeup call. That's totally what it was.
yeah, it was a
Totally.
makeup call, and my biggest pet peeve is makeup calls. Like I don't know why, and obviously if it happens to Georgia, I'm all for it. If we get a bad PI called against us and then we get a makeup call the next play, like yeah, woohoo.
Yeah.
But I think makeup calls are the stupidest thing in college football. Like I just said, refs should ref by facts, by objectiveness. If it's a makeup call, then you're bringing your emotion into it. You're giving like you can't do that as a referee, and that's what's plaguing this ref. But but that's a whole different tangent. We don't have to talk about all that.
No, that's definitely interesting. It's definitely been one of the bigger topics in the SEC since Saturday.
Yeah.
And then you mentioned the point about wanting to have an elite atmosphere, but then starting off slow. I've gotten a lot of people commenting on that post I put out where it was Kirby saying, "Let's have the best atmosphere we've ever had," and people have been like, "How about your defensive coordinator and offensive coordinator get it together?" Which totally valid. Totally true. We do need to get it together. But some people, and it's not all the people complaining, like some of the people complaining are just the Munsons that have been around forever and are so pessimistic. Like that's a real thing. But I really have a feeling that a lot of these same people or people that speak like that are the ones that got their national championship pennant in 2022, and that's the first Georgia thing they've ever owned. Like we are plagued by fake bandwagon fans right now. And I mean, I don't know. I hope we can get away from that and just go back to being the obnoxious Georgia fans that we know and love and that will stick by the team no matter what.
Yeah.
I mean, I think there's a bunch of both in
Yeah.
kind of in the fan base. They're trying to act like they're the fan base right now. Anyway, um, the ultimate question, drum roll for your score prediction. How's this game gonna go down? What's the score prediction?
So you talked about it earlier that you think everything that comes into Sanford Stadium's gonna be everything that is thought to be a high scoring game ends up being, a 13-17 type of game. I'm gonna stick with the high scoring thing. And you can have your score prediction and we'll go opposite ends of the spectrum and we'll meet somewhere in the middle maybe. Um I'm going really high scoring. I'm going 38-37 and I'm not saying who's winning.
Ooh, ooh. That now watch it be 38-37. Watch it actually be 38-37. And then you can't claim that you got it 100% right because you didn't say who
No,
had
I'm not, I'm
38.
not. I don't care. I'm not saying who's winning.
How are you going to put out that graphic on Instagram? 38-37 and then just like question marks under it.
Yeah,
I
I'll just
don't
put
know,
a
man.
gray line in the middle and no logos. We'll do.
The comments will be awesome on that.
Oh yeah, yeah, exactly.
High scoring though. High scoring. Again, definitely what it's supposed to be right now. I'll elaborate on my next segment after we end the interview for my score prediction. But I'll go ahead and tell you, you gave yours, so I'll give mine. Right now, I'm looking at kind of like 23-17-ish. I do think Ole Miss covers because, again, like we said, I wouldn't touch that spread. I mean, I don't sports gamble, but I don't throw shade at anyone who does,
Yeah.
unless you're just like a straight up degenerate. But like, I wouldn't touch a 7.5 line, especially on this game. I just feel like it's very tricky because Georgia could win by 10, Georgia could win by 3, Ole Miss could win and just straight up cover the line. So it goes either way. But anyway, thanks, Hammy, for joining.
Of course, man.
As always, go dogs. Hopefully, we're back here next week and in celebration. I would love to, go get a top 5 win in Sanford Stadium. Like we said, let's be hell. You threw in some expletives, which I won't repeat, but I think they send a good. The overall message is good as far as let's make Sanford Stadium once again the most intimidating place to play in college football. If you haven't lost your voice at the end of the first drive, you're not being a real fan. I lose my voice by warm-ups typically. It's insane. Probably that might be a little bit of an exaggeration, but let's like aim high here. Like lose your voice early on. Come on,
Yeah,
let's do it, guys.
yeah. I love it. I love it. Let's be hell. Let's get it done. Keep shopping, baby.
All right. Thank you, as always, Hammy, for coming on and doing these interviews. Let's go ahead and get into the score prediction. I've got Georgia 23-17. It just feels right. Sometimes I really sit on it and think about it. And I have a lot for this game, but the number 23-17 popped into my head. The numbers 23-17 popped into my head, and I'm like, I like it. Georgia wins. Close game, as it should be. I'm good with it. I think Georgia will play well. I think that we will start slow, but similarly to what I predicted last week, it didn't come to fruition. But what I predicted last week was that Georgia would start slow, but it wouldn't be that bad. Like, it'd be manageable. It wouldn't be completely stagnant, where it really was pretty much completely stagnant last week. I don't think that's the case for this week. I think we'll come out, score a touchdown, maybe 2, but they'll hold the lead going into half. We won't play our best ball. We'll start slow, realistically. But I think second half on out, we will dominate the trenches. I think Ole Miss will win in the trenches early on, but I do think that we'll come out second half and take over the trenches and take over the game. As I said before, Ole Miss and Lane Kiffin will come out firing on offense with a great script, but I don't think that that script, that great opening momentum, will stay true for the rest of the game. I do not think it will hold true for the rest of the game. This ultimately comes down to the fact that I think that Georgia is a second half team until Georgia says that they are not a second half team and proves otherwise that they can start quick. They've done it against Marshall. They've done it against they started quick on that first drive against Tennessee, but really didn't for the rest of that opening quarter. They started quick against Kentucky. Outside of that, Georgia does not start fast. We've got to flip the script on that, flip the momentum, and prove to ourselves and prove to the country that we are a force to be reckoned. We are a force to be reckoned with, not only in the first half. We are a force to be reckoned with, not only in the second half, but the first half. There we go. I really tripped up on my words. I apologize. Been a long day. Good day, but long day. That's pretty much sums up my score prediction for Georgia Ole Miss. I'm going to read y'all some of these injury reports real quick, and then we will come back with the faith and word of encouragement after that. So obviously the biggest injury news up to this point has been the fact that Kyron Jones will not play in this game, one of Georgia's 2 starting safeties, who obviously returned a fumble back to the house last week, but we won't talk about that. He will be out for this football game. Some other players who will be out for this game, obviously Ethan Barber had the horrific ankle injury earlier this year. Please continue to pray for him. Talon Taylor has that collarbone injury, which the surgery, I've been told, will help that whole process speed up. So maybe that's a blessing in disguise. Please keep praying for him. Obviously pray for all these players that are hurt. Kyron Jones, who I did mention first. Thomas Blackshear, Malachi Tolliver. Just keep them in your thoughts and prayers. Obviously it sucks for these players, these young men, to not be able to play the game they love because of something they ultimately really cannot control. So just think about that. Consider that. Monroe Freeling and Ernest Green. Ernest Green's probable. They're both probable. I'm really glad to see that. I love Ernest Green. I love his story. I love just how he's stuck through and through with UGA, and I really, really hope that it works out for him. He's a good dude, and has faced some unfortunate lingering issues with his back. But I mean, that's really it for the Georgia injury report. But now we're going to shift this a little bit. We're going to talk about Stuart and Cliff Neckley, who came to Athens Church last Tuesday. Again, I recorded a podcast on either Wednesday or Thursday of last week, and it just got deleted off my computer. As I was recording, I shifted the computer and the hard drive, disconnected, and it deleted the whole thing. So hopefully that doesn't happen again. I'll be more careful. But Cliff and Stuart were great. I got to meet both of them, take a picture with both of them. As you may have seen, my good friend Colin Rooks and I have a collaboration up with Stuart Neckley on Instagram right now. It's pretty great. I'll go and throw that clip up right now. But it was an awesome experience, and this is again my faith note, word of encouragement. I wanted to bring this to you to kind of say it's encouraged me to be more bold about my faith. Has been a good bit of what that experience has done, getting to meet them and speak to them a little bit. Briefly, but then just hearing what they had to say. Monday at Tate for about 2 hours, Tuesday at Tate for 2 hours, and then at Athens Church for about 2 hours. I had a lot of interactions or listening instances to Cliff and Stuart last week. But the other thing it's taught me is to be more intentional in the Word, intentional with being in the Word, which is something I've been working on recently anyway, and have been discussing recently anyway with people. But another thing it's done is just to encourage me to learn more, like the value of reading things and getting informed and just learning about, I guess, the world in general or reality in general is a really valuable thing. They're very objective, and just learning to be more objective is something that I was inspired to do through them. So I wanted to share that with y'all. I guess my encouragement would be intentional in the Word, be intentional with reading things such as the news, no matter what your scope of news is, Georgia football, whatever it may be, whatever reality thing you want to look at, reality TV, I guess. Just inform yourself, just read, just be objective and grow in your faith. I know those aren't the most complex ideas, but there's kind of some cool things I took away from Cliff and Stuart. But anyway, that's the end of this episode. Thank you all for watching. Thank you again to Hammy, as always, for participating in our interview. Go Dogs. Let's beat Ole Miss, and I'll be back next week. Go Dogs.